the whole idea of the Qedesha and the Kadesh, as I said, was commonplace in the ancient Near East, but for the authors of the Tanakh, of the Bible, it was something that would better be kept like in the back burner. So let us look at this story. It's a famous story in the book of Samuel, 1 Samuel, chapter 16, and that is where Saul fails as a king, and God says, "Okay, I'm going to send you and anoint a new king." So I'm going to ask someone to read, but just raise your voice because we're recording it, so it has to come through my speaker to the recorder. So let's start from verse 1. It's an interesting story. Who would like to read then? Julian?
Read.
Oh, okay. Donna, okay, read it.
And the Lord said unto Samuel, How long wilt thou mourn for Saul, seeing I'm not going to move the pictures here, seeing I have rejected him from being king over Israel? Fill thy horn with oil, and go. I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided me a king amongst his sons. And Samuel said, How can I go? If Saul hear it, he will kill me. And the Lord said, Take a heifer with thee, and say, I am come to sacrifice to the Lord. And call Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will tell thee what thou shalt do, and thou shalt anoint unto me him whom I name unto thee. And Samuel did that which the Lord spoke, and came to Bethlehem. And the elders of the city came to meet him trembling, and said, Comest thou peaceably? And he said, Peaceably I am come to sacrifice unto the Lord. Sanctify yourselves, and come with me to the sacrifice. And he sanctified Jesse and his sons, and called them to the sacrifice.
We'll stop here for a second. From verse 4, when it says that they came to meet him trembling and said, Did you come in peace? Right? Comes through peaceably. That we see that that act of the prophet coming to the city to have a sacrifice was not a commonplace thing, right? It's a rare event, so it's something that everybody is excited for, and even somewhat concerned because they don't know what is his purpose, right? Just keep that in mind. Okay, so in verse 6.
And it came to pass, when they were come, that he beheld Eliab, and said, Surely the Lord's anointed is before him. But the Lord said unto Samuel, Look not on his countenance, or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For it is not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. Then Jesse called Aminadab, and made him pass before Samuel. And he said, Neither hath the Lord chosen this. Then Jesse made Shammah to pass by, and he said, Neither hath the Lord chosen this. And Jesse made 7 of his sons to pass before Samuel. And Samuel said unto Jesse, The Lord hath not chosen these.
Okay, we'll stop here for a second. This event is how we describe it. I mean, the atmosphere around, like in the room when each son passes by and the prophet looks at him and he says, "Okay." When he looks at Eliab, he tells himself yes. So the father looks at his face and he sees this kind of approval, right? But then he says, "No, this is not the one. Bring the next one." What kind of atmosphere in the room? If let's assume it's only Yishai, Jesse, and his 7 children, or maybe there were other people there, guests. We don't know exactly, right? How are people feeling? What is the atmosphere in the room? In the room,
Nervous.
Okay.
Just feeling of rejection.
I mean, it's not right. Not a comfortable feeling to be rejected. Um, I think in modern time, you could see it. In of course, with driving a distinction between that and others, but in reality shows like American Idol, or it could be like The Best Chef, whatever. Here's like you have a reality show, reality TV, where a king is about to be chosen, and you have seven candidates, and each one of them is being rejected. So once the seven children of Jesse were rejected, what do you expect Jesse to say? He ran out of children. What is he going to do now? I mean, we know the end of the story, so I can't really spoil it for you. But if we read, Donna, read the verse 11.
Okay, and Samuel said unto Jesse, Here all thy children? And he said, There remaineth yet the youngest, and behold, he keepeth the sheep.
Stop there. Right, wait a second. Stop there. What? Like, you read this.
It's like, where is he? Why is he out doing the sheep? He is not called into the room.
Right. Well, are you serious? Like when you talk to the prophet, right? If the prophet is there, he looks at Ishai, he looks at Jesse, he says, "Are you serious? You have another child and you didn't tell me?" And we also have to ask this question: how is it possible that Jesse ignored this son? Did he forget him? Is it Home Alone, biblical edition? that this child is being forgotten and not remembered.
Maybe he's illegitimate.
So maybe he's illegitimate, right? That's a possibility. So let's see if it's possible, because continue reading, and Samuel said unto Jesse,
where are we?
The end of verse 11.
Okay. And Samuel said unto Jesse, Send and fetch him, for we will not sit down till he come hither.
Okay. So from thank you. So from Samuel's insistence on we will not sit down until he comes, we can deduce what Jesse was saying.
Well, he's saying that he's not hither.
Right, he's not hither. It is possible that Yishai or Jesse was saying, "Oh no, it's too far. There's no point. Everything is going to be spoiled. Let's just eat. He's not here." So that would, if that was really the dialogue between them, that would reinforce the question of what is going on here. Why are they trying to reject David? Right. So if we move forward, so let's leave it with this notion of something strange is happening here, and let's wait. I skipped too much. Where am I? Here. Here in chapter in chapter 17 of 1 Samuel, we find this. Julian, do you want to read before?
Yes.
So read verse 17. There's a war between the Philistines and the Israelites, right? And Jesse's older children. No, okay. First, let's read verse 13 and then skip to 17.
Okay. And the three eldest sons of Jesse had gone after Saul to the battle, and the names of his three sons that went to the battle were Eliab the firstborn, and next unto him Abinadab, and the third Shammah.
Okay. So you realize also it's the same three names that we saw before. The other four are not even mentioned. So if anyone had a chance to do anything, it's the three oldest children, right? And now, so read now verse 17. He was not sent to war. Yeah, okay.
And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and carry them quickly to the camp to thy brethren.
And bring.
And bring these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000, and to thy brethren shalt thou bring greetings, and take their pledge.
Okay, so this reminds us a little bit of, I think, the story of Joseph and his brothers, right? The brothers are away. Jacob tells Joseph, go see how they're doing. Here, the brothers are away. Jesse tells David, go see how they're doing. So David goes there, and as you know, and the Bible is emphasizing the fact that Vayitosh et atzon al shomer, he left the sheep with the keeper, right? So he is responsible. He comes to the battlefield, and he goes around and he asks people, what is going on between you and Goliath? And now read verse 28.
And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, Why art thou come down, and with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know that thy presumptuousness and the naughtiness of thy heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle.
Right, so Eliab is angry at David, right? And he is accusing him of things that we know already. Why David is doing that, right? We know why David came to the battlefield. He came to greet his brothers and give some gifts to their commander, maybe to give them special treatment, right? And he was responsible because he did not abandon the sheep in the desert, in the wilderness. He did take care of them. He made sure that someone is in charge. So, what is going on? Is Eliab leveling fair accusations at David or not? So look at David's answer in verse 29.
And David said, What have I now done? Was it not but a word?
Meaning, I was just speaking to the people, right? But I think that the translation is wrong here, and the correct translation is "halo davahu" with a exclamation mark, with an exclamation mark. He says "halo davahu." It is an issue, and I would read this as David is telling his brother, King David, the future King David, is telling his brother, I know that you constantly criticize me, but now what have I done? It is an issue, meaning you have a bone to pick with me. No matter what I do, you will not be happy. I came here on my father's, following my father's orders, but and you still find a way to rebuke me. So I think that's the idea of halo davahu. So there's another example that supports the idea that David is ostracized, and no matter what he does, no matter what he does, they will attack him. So now David goes to Saul, King Saul, and says, "I'm going to go and fight Goliath." Right? And Saul says, "Look at verse 33." And Saul
said to David, Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he is a man of war from his youth.
Yeah, go on.
And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and when there came a lion, or a bear, or took a lamb out of the flock, I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he rose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Keep going?
Yeah.
Thy servant smote both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath taunted the armies of the living God.
Wow. Okay. So the way David describes his work day, right? It's not this bucolic, pastoral shepherd sitting on a hilltop, playing his flute, counting sheep and falling asleep, right? This is it's a dangerous work. I mean, today, if you visit Israel, you won't see lions or bears, but they used to be native to Israel. They were exterminated, but there were lions and bears in Israel, in the desert, and David confronted them and killed them. So, and he's taking his sheep to the desert. He lives in Bethlehem, Yehuda, in Bethlehem, which is, if you know the geography of Israel, there are enough grazing areas, fields around Bethlehem. He doesn't have to go all the way to the desert to do that. So it seems like not only is ostracized and is alienated by the family, they send him deliberately to a remote place, to the wilderness, where his life is in danger, as if they're trying to get rid of him. They wish that he would die. Maybe it's an exaggeration. Maybe that's how he felt, but we know that he speaks about that in Psalms, and we'll see those Psalms later. And here's another interesting thing. We know that David went against Goliath, right, and killed him. And what was the promise of Saul to the person who would defeat Goliath? Do you remember what did he say? No, he's going to like the classic stories. He's going to marry the princess. He's going to marry Michal, the daughter of Shaul. Now, before that, already in chapter 16, shortly after David was anointed, we read that Saul said unto his servants, "Provide me now a man that can play well, and bring him to me." Saul had all kind of nightmares and anxieties, and he wanted someone, a musician, who could please him. And that man was, "Behold, I have seen a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, that is skillful in playing." And Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, "Bring me David." And David came to Saul and stood before him, and he loved him and became his page or armor bearer. So already before this confrontation in chapter 17 between the Philistines and the Israelites, King Saul knows David very well, right? He knows him, he knows his family. But look what happens after David defeats the Philistine. Look we'll read verse 55, 56. And when Saul saw David go forth against the Philistine, he said unto Abner, the captain of the host, "Abner, whose son is this youth?" And Abner said, "As thy soul liveth, O king, I cannot tell." And the king said, "Inquire thou whose son the stripling is." It's like stripling. I don't heard this word. Anyway, so
Whippersnapper?
What?
Whippersnapper?
Yeah. What is happening here? Isn't it strange? He already knows David. He was his musician. What is his question?
He doesn't know who his father is.
Right. So the emphasis is on the father. I know who the son is. I don't know who the father is. But he knew that he was David, the son of Jesse of Bethlehem, right? It says so in chapter 16. Look, chapter 16, when Saul asks for a musician, in verse 18, he says, "Behold, I have seen the son of Jesse the Bethlehemite." So what is happening here? So, any idea in line of what we said before? In terms of David being maybe an illegitimate son? It was okay. So it was okay for David to be a musician for King Saul.
Oh.
He's an entertainer. He's I would say the jester, but he works as the part of the royal staff, in the court. But now he is slated to become the king's son-in-law. he's going to marry Michal, the daughter of the king. And Saul wants to know if this man is fit to be king in terms of his genealogy. And he said, Ben Mize Alim, who is the father of this child? And he would not say that had he not heard something. Probably the rumors were strong enough that, and that's why Jesse was trying to get rid of David. And who knows, maybe even the idea of fetching David to the king's court to become the musician was part of a plan to either elevate his status in a way that the family will not be embarrassed, or to remove him from the family. So we have more and more evidence that there was an attempt here to get. So David has some kind of a lowly genealogy, and then they are trying to get rid of him. Right? We see it here. So we saw several things. One, that when Samuel comes to anoint a king, Jesse seems to completely have forgotten that he has this son. Second, that when David goes to visit his brothers in the battlefield, they rebuke him, they're angry at him, and he says, "What have I done now? I haven't done anything." Meaning that there is a systematic approach to put down David. And here we see that even though Saul knew who David was, but when he defeated Goliath and was about to marry the daughter of the king says, "I don't know who this kid is."
This reminds me a lot of the fairy tale Cinderella.
Yes.
The evil stepsisters, and they're putting them forward to try on the shoe,
right?
And crapping on Cinderella all the time. And,
As a matter of fact, trying on the shoe just before that, in the previous chapter, when David approaches Saul and says, "I'm going to go and fight the Philistine," King Saul says, "Okay, go ahead and put my armor on you." And he puts the armor and he says, "No, it doesn't fit me. I'm not the one to wear these." So even this element of if the boot fits, right? If the shoe fits, is there, and this is part of the. I think like we mentioned before, the beauty of the stories in the Bible is that it has the elements of this very human and relatable tale, without the fairy tale element. So, because when we read Cinderella, we need the midnight transformation and the fairy godmother and all that. But here you don't have. There are no magical transformation. We just have a kid who's being rejected, who has beautiful qualities, but for some reason, maybe something that is not within his power, maybe his genealogy, the way he was born or conceived. For that reason, he's being ostracized. So we could say maybe that the fairy godmother here is, or the equivalent, is God choosing him, right, anointing him to be king. This is sort of a spiritual, right? But that anointment is just pointing him out. It doesn't change him, like we have in other stories. But yes, we have here definitely classic elements of the underdog, David, who becomes the hero and the king, but later on he has ups and downs in his personal life with his children, with King Saul. He's being persecuted for years by King Saul. It's not an easy life for him. So from here we're going to go and visit the David's diary. What?
I mentioned something.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So I guess it was in chapter 17, but verse 43. There was a dog reference.
Yes. Yes, I didn't want. Right. That's right. When I said the word underdog, I was thinking about that. But you're right. The Goliath tells him, "Why did you come with me with sticks? Am I a dog?" Right. And even before that, Vayireh David Vayivzeu, David, the Philistine disdains David He has he was a youth and ruddy and with all of a fair countenance. It was he looked in a way different, maybe even different than the Israelites. But in any case, the Philistine says, "Am I a dog that you come to me with staves?" So David is abused or ridiculed by everyone, and is only, ironically, up to a certain point, loved by Saul. So, okay, we'll have this. We'll put this aside for a second. Unless you have more questions on that. And let's move to David's diaries. You know that we have David's diaries, right?
Psalms?
It's Psalms, right? The book of Psalms. Not all of Psalms is his diaries, but there are a lot of chapters there that are very revealing in terms of how he feels, and also some of them have direct references to his life. So let's look at this psalm. Okay. Let's look at this. Let's look at this psalm. Anyone else wants to read? Abby, how is your cough?
Sure.
You're good. Okay.
I have my voice back today.
Okay, bro. Thank God. So let's start from the beginning, and as you read, you comment. You can comment on what is the general atmosphere or a message, attitude of this psalm.
Okay. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When evildoers came upon me to eat up my flesh, even mine adversaries and my foes, they stumbled and fell. Though a host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise up against me, even then will I be confident. One thing have I asked of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the graciousness of the Lord, and to visit early in his temple. For he concealeth me in his pavilion in the day of evil. He hideth me in the covert of his tent. He lifteth me up upon a rock. It seems kind of a little paranoid.
Paranoid? Okay, I hear. Please explain.
It's just speaking of constant fear and expecting enemies to rise up against him, needing shelter and safety.
Right. The question is it being paranoid or is he thinking of real dangers? I mean, fear. No, I'm not saying what.
He may be thinking of real dangers. What I was saying before is, just because he's paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get him.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's just a question of linguistic. I think we associate paranoid with someone who sees dangers where they don't exist. But he does seem confident, meaning he speaks about potential fears and says, I am confident in God. I want to be. He conceals me. He protects me. So whether you call it, paranoid or fearful, but is someone who is being surrounded by danger and evil, maybe persecution. Okay, and how does he conclude? That's you stopped in the right place, Abid. In terms of this is sort of the first part of the psalm where he speaks about being protected from evil, and now he moves into the more positive, dynamic approach in verse 6. And now
shall my head be lifted up above mine enemies round about me, and I will offer in his tabernacle sacrifices with trumpet sound. I will sing, yea, I will sing praises unto the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I call with my voice, and be gracious unto me, and answer me. In thy behalf my heart hath said, seek ye my face. Thy face, Lord, will I seek. Hide not thy face from me, put not thy servant away in anger. Thou hast been my help. Cast me not off, neither forsake me, O God of my salvation. For though my father and my mother have forsaken me, the Lord will take me up. Teach me thy way, O Lord, and lead me in an even path, because of them that lie in wait for me. Deliver me not over unto the will of mine adversaries, for false witnesses are risen up against me, and such as breathe out violence. If I had not believed to look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait on the Lord, be strong, and let thy heart take courage. Yea, wait thou for the Lord.
Okay. I think before we comment on the psalm, I just think it's a very powerful message. I think this is one of the psalms where you could see why the book became such a popular book of prayer. It's really a very powerful message that speaks to people. Not when you read this, you don't think of someone who's king. We think of someone who's being sometimes vulnerable, sometimes weak, fearful, paranoid. Yet he has this tremendous confidence in God and this concept of hope. But what else do you see in this psalm? You could comment on.
What? I'm sorry. What was the question?
When in light of what we read before, right? I mean, in general, what is your feeling? What do you feel is the atmosphere? Abby commented on the first part. What do you see in the second half, and how do you see its relation? Yeah.
Something that pops up in my head is like for the kid who doesn't have a lot of friends, they might make up an
imaginary friend.
An imaginary friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just like I'm looking at the for though my father and mother have forsaken me, the Lord will take me up, and that with what was going on in his life with his birth situation,
Mm-hmm.
or, lineage situation, it makes sense that David would turn to another parental source.
Right. So I agree with that. So when he speaks about that, for though my father and my mother have forsaken me, do we read it as this is what really happened in real life, or he says even my father and mother would forsake me, but not you? How do you read that? Is it something that happened to him?
It could be. You can read it two ways. Like you can read it even if they forsook me, blah blah blah. But I think given all the other context, sounds like they really have.
Right.
Not hypothetical.
Right. It seems like it's his true life story. He says, Ki avi v'im yazavuni, my father and my mother have forsaken me. And so the question is, who are his father and mother, by the way? Is Jesse his father or not? Because right now, I mean, first of all, there's the question of what is the correlation between Psalms and the real story of King David. Is it, there's a question about authorship of Psalms in general, but this one is attributed to David. It is a Psalm of David, right? So the question is he speaking about a specific event in his life? Is it a general feeling? And if it is a specific event in his life, then what is the relationship between him and Jesse? Was Jesse his father? And he abandoned him, and he found him again, like maybe an illegitimate child who comes and says, "You are my father. I want you to take care of me." Or was he an orphan or an abandoned child that Jesse took into his house, and maybe Jesse did not think of him as a natural child, as a birth child, but God does think of him as a birth child? This is another possibility. Maybe Jesse was not a an evil parent. Just he thought he brought him in. He just trying to do an act of kindness with him, and therefore he did not think of him as his direct son. It's also a possibility. But I also see here in verse 9, when David talks to God, after speaking about God is my fortress, my light, my salvation, he conceals me in his pavilion, he covers me in his tent. In verse 9 he says, hide not thy face from me, put not thy servant away in anger. Thou hast been my help, cast me not off, neither forsake me, O God of my salvation. Here I think I would go with what Abby said before, this paranoia, this tremendous fear of being abandoned. And the fact that he had it in his childhood haunts him throughout his life and directs his probably attitude on many other things. I remember when I read the biography of Steve Jobs, a lot of things in his life were guided by that feeling of being abandoned by his father, because his father and mother had him out of wedlock before they got married, and his father was afraid that he's going to lose the inheritance of his father-in-law. So he convinced the mother to give him away for abortion. And this was something that really, throughout his life, he was afraid of, on one end, afraid of being abandoned, but also afraid of fostering relationships with others because of that failure that it was in his childhood. So this is an interesting question of like how David feels, just in terms of really the beauty of the structure of the psalm, because we're really trying to get this connection to the Tanakh through this direct connection to Tanakh. It starts on a high note. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? It ends on a high note. If I had not believed to look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living, he says, I want to focus on the land of the living and not the land of the dead, because this is another element that appears quite often in Psalms. The land of the dead, or the netherworld, on the underworld. And he says, wait on the Lord, be strong, and let thy heart take courage, yet wait thou for the Lord. So he starts on a high note, ends on a high note. In between, he describes, he goes through those oscillations of being persecuted, being protected, being abandoned, being afraid of abandonment, and then back to hope. But altogether, I think we have, like you mentioned, that we have this feeling of that there was something really there in his youth. Josh, you wanted to say something before on that?
Abby said it quite well.
Okay. So let's move now to another psalm to look at, and this is 67. Here. Who didn't read yet? Brandon, you want to read, or yeah?
Sure.
Okay. So let's start here also from the beginning. It's Psalm 69.
For the leader upon Shoshanimim, a psalm of David.
Okay. Just a comment. Shoshanim in Hebrew means either roses or lilies, and it's not clear what this instruction is. What we call the superscript, the title of the psalm, could be that it was a musical instrument in the shape of a lily or a rose, more probably a lily, and it's an instruction of how to sing or how to chant this song. Okay.
Save me, O God, for the waters are come even unto the soul. I am sunk in deep mire, where there is no standing. I am come into deep waters, and the flood overwhelmeth me. I am weary of my crying. My throat is dry. Mine eyes fail while I wait for my God. They that hate me without a cause are more than the hairs of my head. They that would cut me off, being mine enemies wrongfully, are many. Should I restore that which I took not away? O God, you going?
Yeah. Unless you want to comment as you read about your feeling on that, then if not, we'll do it. We'll read it later. We'll discuss it later.
I'll keep going for now.
Okay.
Okay. O God, thou knowest my folly, and my trespasses are not hid from thee. Let not them that wait for thee be ashamed through me, O Lord God of hosts. Let not those that seek thee be brought to confusion through me, O God of Israel. Because for thy sake I have borne reproach. Confusion hath covered my face. I am become a stranger unto my brethren, and an alien unto my mother's children. Because zeal for thine house hath eaten me up, and the reproaches of them that reproach thee are fallen upon me. And I wept with my soul fasting, and that became unto me a reproach. I made sackcloth. I made sackcloth also my garment, and I became a byword unto them. They that sit in the gate talk of me, and I am the song of the drunkards. But as for me, let my prayer be unto thee, O Lord, in an acceptable time. O God, in the abundance of thy mercy, answer me with the truth of thy salvation.
Okay, so let's stop here. It's a long psalm, right? And we're going later to look at the another phrase at the end. But what do we see here that is exceptional? There's another element. I mean, he speaks again about persecution, and of course, but I think there are added elements. What did you note? Anything exceptional here? Let's put it this way: in the way he describes the conflict or the confrontation between him and his enemies, there is an additional concept. It's not just the personal persecution of David by his brothers.
Well, I mean, what I'm thinking of is schizophrenia, as I'm reading this, and I think he's having a mental health crisis.
Why that?
Why am I saying that?
Yeah.
He's sunk in a mire. The flood is overcoming him. He's become a stranger to his brethren, an alien to his mother children. Zeal for God's house has, he's become maybe obsessed or consumed with his devotion to God.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just
could be. I don't know if it has to do with the schizophrenia, but it could be.
Well, I get it.
But the point that Abby mentioned, yes, Josh.
Oh, this seems to be written possibly after he's already king. The scope of the problems seem to be much greater. Psalm 27 felt a little more personal. This one feels a little more almost political.
Mm-hmm.
When he talks about the scope of the number of they that hate me without a cause, and it's interesting. It uses the term sonai chinam, which we know is the reason for the destruction of the second temple.
Right, sinat chinam, right.
So
without a cause.
But their enemies are more than the hairs of my head. So we're dealing with. It just seems like a larger scope here.
It also seems to be an allusion to the promise of God to Abraham that we're going to be more. His seed are going to be more numerous than the sands of on the beach, and this is his. No, my enemies are more numerous than my hairs on my head.
It's a hyperbole, like exaggeration. So. Maybe we put together what Abby said and Josh in terms of the scope of his problems, and like also you were speaking about exaggerating. It's if it is written when he's king, then He's saying my problems did not go away when I became king. Now it's kinad betcha chalafni. It's zeal for thy house has eaten me up. It is possible. I'm just as a commentary. I don't know if this is true. That this is written after he was denied permission to build a temple. That he wanted to build a permanent temple, and the prophet told him, "You are not going to do it because you're a blood-shedding person." And it's possible that after this, people were talking about why was David disqualified, and maybe they dug up this old story about his the problem with his genealogy, and now it's not only his family who mocks him, but those who sit in the gate and the drunkards. So remember that sitting in the gate is always something that is associated with the palace, like Mordechai sitting in the royal gate. So David says, now everybody mocks me, from the highest ranking person to those who are spending their days drinking. So that is one element. Another thing that I think is really remarkable here is not just the fear, like Abby mentioned before, like the paranoia that he had, thinking of his enemies who surround him. But this verse 3, I am sunk in deep mire where there is no standing. I am come into deep waters and the flood overwhelms me. This is can you visualize this picture of maybe the first time that we were thrown into a pool and we can't swim, or standing on quicksand and you just can't get out. This is one of our primal fears, of being suffocated, having no air, or drowning. I think one of men's primal fears. So it's a much, much deeper level of anxiety and terror that he has. It's interesting to know that the prophet Jeremiah went through such an experience when his enemies really tried to assassinate him by throwing him into a pit, sort of a bottomless pit, a pit that contained not quicksand but some kind of tar or liquid, thick liquid that would suck him in, and they had to pull him out, his friends, with ropes. But so we see here the intensity of the persecution that he feels. It seems like he's already in a high position and still is being mocked. And the verse, Abby, that you mentioned before, this verse 9 is, I think, key here. It says, I am become a stranger. Now, I don't know if it's I am become, like I have become, but rather I was. Muzar hayiti, I have always been muzar, a stranger unto my brethren, and an alien unto my mother's children. So the word nochri in Hebrew is a key word in the story of Joseph and his brothers. It's from the word lehakir, to know, but lehitnaker in the reflexive is to conceal your identity. So there's something hidden there. David has a secret identity. He's a nochri, but also he's a muzar, which is a rare word in the Tanakh, and it reminds us of the Hebrew term for bastard, in the sense of someone who's not born out of wedlock, but someone who we don't even know exactly in the biblical sense what is a mamzer. This is the Hebrew word for bastard, mamzer. When David says I was a muzar, it's both saying I was cast aside, because zar, alien, is someone who's pushed aside, cast aside. So he's cast aside, but also maybe he acknowledges that there was a problem with his genealogy. That's one more psalm that we'll look at. So we saw Psalm 25, we see Psalm 29. Now, this is, I think, some commentators address these issues. The Midrash comes trying to solve this problem with a fantastic story that has no basis in reality, except for the question. The questions are there, but the answers that the Midrash provides are not satisfying. According to the Midrash, which is the rabbinical commentary on the Tanakh, on the Bible, what happened was that Jesse was concerned at a certain point that none of his children is a valid Israelite, because his great-grandmother Ruth was a Moabite convert, and the Torah said that you should not accept converts from the Moabites. So in order to correct the situation, he wanted to conceive a child through his maidservant, and that child would have the status of a slave. But then Jesse could set him free, and when he's free, he'll be a valid Israelite and he could marry whomever he wants. So Jesse coordinated with the maid to be with her so she could bear him a child. But she was very faithful to her mistress, the wife of Jesse, who the Midrash names as Nitzevet Bat Adael. We don't know where they took the name from. Maybe to make it sound authentic. Oh, well, we know her name. How are we going to check? Nobody knows what her name was. So she tells her mistress, and they switch. So instead of sleeping being with the maid, he sleeps with his real wife. But when he sees that she's pregnant, and he knows in his mind that he was not with her, he thinks that the child is the product of incest, and that's why the kid was marked as a mamzer. In that way, the Midrash answers all the questions that we had of why David was alienated. The problem is that this kind of story does not seem realistic, because the only cases that we know in the Bible of switching brides or wives was with Rachel and Leah, the wives of Jacob, and in that case, it is very probable that they were twins, just like Jacob and Esau were twins. So also Rachel and Leah were twins, and that's why they were able to deceive him. To think that Jesse would not have known whether he's with his wife, who bore him 7 children, or with his maidservant is a little far-fetched. And to think that he was engaged in such halachic or legal considerations, whether his children can marry an Israelite woman or not, it seems a little strange. So we'll leave it at that, I think that the Midrash points us in the direction of the problem, but does not give us an answer. I want to look at something else. This is for me, I think, the clue of what was exactly the story of David, and that connects to the whole theme of Qedesha, of the cult prostitution that we mentioned last week. And this is in verse 31-32. He says this: I will praise the name of God with a song, and I will magnify him with thanksgiving. And it shall please the Lord better than a bullock that has horns and hoofs. So he speaks about, he rejects the concept of sacrifices, and he says, my song and my thanksgiving are greater than that. So here we have, that's the first time where we see that he connects his own life story to the sacrifices of the temple. So maybe this is also an indication of what happens here in verse 9. Verse 10, sorry. Because zeal for thy house had eaten me up. He tried to build the temple and he was denied permission. So he says, you know what? It doesn't really matter, because my songs and my thanksgiving are greater than all these sacrifices, right? We could testify now, looking in retrospect, that he was right. Nobody brings. When was the last time any of you brought a sacrifice, like a real sacrifice, right? Or any of us? We don't do that. But we read Psalms on a daily basis. This is the most used prayer book in the world. So he did succeed to praise God with song and thanksgiving. But we'll take a break now, and then we'll return to see what is the connection here between sacrifices and David's situation. Okay.